Iran has named Mojtaba Khamenei as the country's new supreme leader, hours after U.S. President Donald Trump said any new leader will not last long without U.S. approval. Rising tensions in the Middle East are pushing global oil prices to their highest level since 2022, with crude topping $100 a barrel. In response, President Je-hyuk has ordered strong measures to crack down on possible price collusion in the domestic petroleum market. As the rising oil prices fueled market jitters over the widening Middle East conflict, South Korean stocks had tumbled nearly 6% on Monday. The Korean won also plunged against the U.S. dollar, hitting its lowest level since 2009. President Je-hyuk presided over an emergency meeting today to check on the impact of the conflict in the Middle East on the local economy. He urged for price caps to be placed on oil products to bring down energy costs. Our Blue House correspondent Yoon Jung-min starts us off.
Devising preemptive measures that can cover worst-case scenarios with a sense of urgency. That was President Lee Jae-myung at an emergency meeting of economy-related officials on Monday, which was organized as the conflict in the Middle East continues to pose risks on the local and global economies.
필요한 경우에는 100조 원 규모로 마련돼 있는 시장 안정 프로그램을 적극적으로 확대하고 정부와 중앙은행 차원의 추가 조치도 선제적으로 준비해야 되겠습니다.
President Lee once again called for strong measures against price collusion related to oil products and mentioned the need to stabilize prices.
최근에 과도하게 인상된 석유 제품에 대해서는 최고 가격 제도를 신속하게 도입하고 정유사와 주유소의 담합, 또 매점 매석, 사재기 등 불법 행위는 철저하게 단속하고 위반할 경우 그로 인해서 생길 이익의 몇 배에 해당되는 엄정한 제재를 가할 필요가 있습니다.
Noting that the country is highly dependent on energy imports, Lee called for the need to look for alternative measures to bring down energy costs and ease the burden on the lives of the people.
전략적 협력 국가들과 공조해서 호르무즈 해협을 경유하지 않는 대체 공급선을 신속하게 발굴하면 좋겠습니다.
The meeting was attended by officials in charge of finance, industry, and energy, among others.
The Industry Ministry will expedite related administrative actions so the price cap can be imposed within this week. The President also ordered officials to review expanding fuel tax cuts and directly providing support to consumers.
Tackling the economic challenges will be the single most visited topic this week, with the president urging the officials to turn the crisis into an opportunity. On top of that, President Lee is looking to reform the economic system in a more fundamental way. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
President Je-hyuk has thanked the leaders of Turkmenistan and Singapore for their help in evacuating South Korean nationals from the Middle East. In a written briefing on Monday, Blue House spokesperson Kang Wi-jung said he sent letters of appreciation to Turkmenistan President Serdar Berdimuhamedov and Singaporean Prime Minister Lawrence Wong for their support. Turkmenistan helped facilitate the entry of 25 South Koreans and their 4 Iranian family members from Iran into its territory last week. And Singapore also allowed 4 Koreans in Oman to board its chartered flights to Singapore over the weekend. And about 300 South Koreans departed Doha aboard a Qatar Airways flight on Monday, after emergency direct flights between Qatar and South Korea were allowed, although regular services remain suspended. According to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs here, the aircraft took off from Doha at around 3:45 p.m. Korea Standard Time and is scheduled to arrive at Incheon International Airport after midnight early on Tuesday. Qatar's airspace is partially open, with only some emergency flights to Europe currently in operation. The Korean embassy in Qatar had been requesting the Qatari government and airlines to resume flights to Seoul in order to facilitate the swift and safe return of Korean nationals staying in the Middle East. Now, according to the Foreign Ministry, Doha accepted Seoul's request on Sunday, after which an emergency flight to South Korea was scheduled. Senior U.S. diplomats are visiting Seoul this week to discuss alliance-related issues. On Monday, the Foreign Ministry said U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, Michael DeSombri, will visit South Korea from Wednesday to Sunday. Now, during his visit, he is expected to meet with Korea's Chief Nuclear Envoy Chung Hyun-do, as well as Deputy Prime Minister Chung Hee and Park Jong-han, the Director General for Economic Diplomacy Coordination. During talks with Director General Jung, the two are expected to discuss North Korea diplomacy. The visit comes ahead of U.S. President Donald Trump's visit to Beijing later this month. The two may also discuss the ongoing situation in the Middle East. Ahead of his arrival, David Wiesel, U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Pacific Affairs, is also visiting Seoul from Monday through Wednesday. The successor to Iran's new supreme leader has been named Mojtaba Khamenei, a largely shadowy figure with strong ties to religious networks. Though the U.S. continues to put pressure, the new leader looks to continue with his predecessor's strong policy toward Washington. An Sung-jin reports.
Iran has selected its new supreme leader following the killing of longtime leader Ali Khamenei. The country's Assembly of Experts named Mojtaba Khamenei as leader on Monday in what state media described as an overwhelming vote.
The esteemed members of the Assembly of Experts appoint and introduce Ayatollah Sayyid Mojtaba Hosseini Khamenei, may God preserve him, as the third leader of the sacred system of the Islamic Republic of Iran.
Mojtaba now holds the country's ultimate authority over state affairs, including command over the military and influence over Iran's nuclear program. As the second son of Ali Khamenei, the new leader has long been considered a powerful but largely shadowy figure in Iranian politics, with strong ties to religious networks and security institutions without holding formal government office.
He has close ties to the IRGC. He served in the IRGC in the Iran-Iraq War in the 1980s. He's also very closely connected to besieged forces, and he's going to have a hardline stance against the U.S., Israel, and the West in general.
The same expert noted that his rise from a father-to-son succession may stir controversy as Iran had overthrown hereditary rule following the Iranian Revolution. Mojtaba is also known for its hardline policies against the U.S., and President Donald Trump reacted sharply to the development. Trump had previously warned that any new Iranian leader would need U.S. approval to remain in power, and had described Mojtaba as a lightweight in an interview before the official leader announcement. Though Trump has notified that Iran would face pressure if its policies continue, with Mojtaba continuing its staunch anti-U.S. rhetoric with strong support from the Revolutionary Guard, his appointment could intensify tensions between Tehran and Washington. The regional conflict continues, with Israel launching large-scale airstrikes against military targets in Tehran and other areas of Iran. The strike struck the aerospace command of the IRGC along with dozens of key facilities, including military bases, the Sharan oil depot and storage sites, and internal security centers. To date, the U.S. has suffered 7 casualties. Iran quickly retaliated, launching drones and ballistic missiles towards several Gulf states, raising fears of a wider conflict. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
The closure of the Strait of Hormuz is rattling global oil markets. U.S. President Donald Trump says higher gas prices will be temporary and a small price to pay for security, while South Korea is closely monitoring pump prices and weighing a fuel price cap. Yoon-jin has the details.
The conflict in the Middle East has effectively closed off the Strait of Hormuz, disrupting supply routes for the roughly 20% of global oil exports that pass through this narrow passageway from the Persian Gulf to the Indian Ocean and beyond. Global oil prices surged past $100 a barrel on Monday. Global benchmark prices climbed sharply, with West Texas Intermediate jumping about 15% to $107.54 per barrel as of 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time, the first time since July 2022 that it has traded above $100. Brent crude also rose, briefly reaching as high as $111 a barrel. Market watchers warn that oil prices could keep rising, with Goldman Sachs saying oil could reach $150 a barrel by the end of the month if flows are not restored. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump said Sunday in a post on Truth Social that such short-term price rises were a very small price to pay for safety and peace, noting that prices would drop rapidly once the nuclear threat in Iran is destroyed. However, Trump is mindful of economic concerns as it remains a priority for voters, which could be directly reflected in the midterm elections. The Treasury Department has said it will soon release plans to mitigate the rising energy costs. In South Korea, gasoline prices continue to creep up closer to the 2,000 mark. According to the Oil Price Information Network, as of 9 a.m. Monday Korea Standard Time, the average price nationwide was approximately 1,897.7 won, or roughly $1.27 per liter. Diesel prices are currently higher, with the average price rising 2.31 from the previous day to 1,920.1 won. On Monday, during a meeting between oil refinery representatives and the related authorities, Industry Minister Kim Jong-wan called for the implementation of transparent and fair petroleum pricing, saying that the burden caused by the situation in the Middle East should not be passed on to consumers unilaterally nor excessively. He also warned that any attempts to take advantage of rising international oil prices in a way that undermines efforts to stabilize the people's livelihoods will be met with grave responses. This comes as President Lee Jae-myung urged the government to crack down on collusion between refiners and gas stations, price fixing, and hoarding, calling for strict punishment of violators. He called for authorities to swiftly implement a cap on domestic gasoline and diesel prices. 이은진, Arirang News.
And South Korean market continues to react to the Middle East situation. Local stocks opened the week deep in the red, with the benchmark Kospi shedding nearly 6%, while the Korean won extended losses against the U.S. dollar. Kim Jun-hong reports.
South Korea's benchmark Kospi closed sharply lower Monday, plunging about 6% to 5,251.87. The index slid right after the opening bell, triggering a sell-side sidecar. Losses later deepened past 8%, setting off a circuit breaker that halted trading for 20 minutes. The halt came just 3 trading days after the last circuit breaker on Wednesday. The Kosdaq also stayed under pressure, with a sell-side sidecar briefly activated during the session. The Korean won also weakened sharply, closing at 1,495.5 won against the U.S. dollar, up about 19 won from the previous session. That marked its highest intraday level since the global financial crisis in 2009. The spike comes as global oil prices surge on escalating tensions in the Middle East, adding pressure across financial and currency markets. The sharp swings have raised questions over how long the instability could persist and how markets may respond in the coming days.
If the currency rises too sharply or volatility becomes excessive, there could be room for authorities to step in. The stock market is currently experiencing significant volatility due to the war. But sharp fluctuations after a shock usually ease over time, a pattern known as clustering, where the initial impact is strongest and gradually fades.
Earlier in the day, the Bank of Korea held a task force meeting to review the Middle East situation. It said geopolitical risks are driving excessive volatility in interest rates and the Korean won, and pledged to take stabilization measures if necessary. Kim Jun-hong, Arirang News.
A National Assembly Special Committee has advanced a bill supporting South Korea's planned $350 billion investment in the U.S. after holding back-to-back subcommittee and plenary meetings on Monday. The Special Committee approved the bill unanimously with bipartisan support. The legislation aims to establish a dedicated investment corporation and a risk management committee to oversee projects in sectors such as shipbuilding and semiconductors, as outlined in a bilateral agreement between the two countries. The bill is expected to head to the National Assembly plenary session on March 12th for final passage. South Korea Monday began excavating the remains of South Korean soldiers killed during the Korean War. Now, the work will be carried out at 34 sites across 22 cities and counties nationwide, including Paju and Yeoncheon, major battlefields from the war. This year, the Defense Ministry aims to find 200 remains, secure 10,000 gene samples from bereaved family members, and disclose the identities of 20 fallen soldiers. The ministry will also carry out international cooperation efforts, such as a joint excavation project with Australia and the mutual repatriation of remains with the U.S. Now, at the 2026 Winter Paralympics over in Italy, Team Korea garnered gold in the biathlon and a bronze in the snowboarding. Our Park Gun-woo has the highlights.
South Korea's Kim Eun-ji topped the podium in the women's sitting para-biathlon in Italy on Sunday, making her the country's first female to win a Winter Paralympic gold. It's also Korea's first gold won overseas, with the country's only previous gold coming at the 2018 Pyeongchang Games.
I'm overjoyed to have won the gold medal sooner than I expected. I'm also incredibly happy that Korean women's para-snow sports have finally earned a medal.
In the 12.5-kilometer event combining cross-country skiing and shooting, Kim finished in just over 38 minutes, beating the second-place finisher by more than 12 seconds and 36 seconds ahead of third place. Athletes had to complete 4 shooting rounds with 5 shots in each round, with every miss adding 1 minute to their race time. In the para-snowboard event also on Sunday, South Korea's Je-hyuk claimed the bronze medal in his second Paralympic appearance, marking the country's first ever medal in the sport. Among the 4 finalists, Yi finished third behind athletes from Italy and Australia. Yi, who began his career as a non-para snowboarder, finally stood on the Paralympic podium after falling short at the Beijing Olympics 4 years ago. The achievements of both athletes were praised by President Lee Jae-myung, who said on social media that their efforts and passion at overcoming physical limits had finally paid off. With the 2 medals won on Sunday, Team Korea has already attained its goal of securing at least 1 gold and 1 bronze within the first 2 days of the 10-day event. More medal chances remain, with Kim Eun-ji and Je-hyuk both scheduled to compete in additional events, as well as other athletes. And with the country's best result coming at the Pyeongchang Games with 1 gold and 2 bronzes, attention is now turning to whether Team Korea can make new history. Park Gun-woo, Arirang News.
A new movement in Seoul, a city famous for its fancy nightlife, is reclaiming the weekend, one sunrise at a time. Trading neon lights for morning mist and coffee instead of soju. Young Koreans are finding a new way to connect through morning raves. Our Jung Hae-rim takes us there.
It's 9 a.m. on a Saturday. While the rest of the city is just waking up, this space is already filled with contagious energy. Let's take a look here at a morning rave in Seoul. This is the Seoul Morning Coffee Club, a community built around Seoul's growing morning culture, hosting group runs and coffee chats. At a rave SMCC hosted from 7 to 10 a.m. at a hotel rooftop bar in central Seoul, participants dance, chat, and some just vibe with the music. Instead of cocktails or soju, the bar serves fresh juice, coffee, and non-caffeinated drinks, offering a space to connect without the influence of alcohol. The concept mirrors a growing global trend, with similar morning dance events popping up in cities like London and Amsterdam.
Since there are so many people I don't know, I wondered if I could really enjoy myself without drinking. But now that I'm here, the atmosphere is great. Dancing and meeting people give me a lot of positive energy.
Yeah, I mean, I went both in the nightlife and in the morning life, so it's really different, but at the same time it's also nice to wake up early and make friends in a different environment, so I like it.
The atmosphere is relaxed and respectful, without the usual chaos of a night out, just people enjoying the music and each other's company. Club founder Park Jae-hyun says in what many describe as a hyper-individualized society, this community provides a remedy for isolation, allowing people to form healthy bonds through shared activity rather than late-night drinking.
I'm a morning person, and because of that, I realized Korea doesn't have a lot of morning activities. I started by searching for cafes that open early and meeting people there. It turned into this huge community, and people seem to find comfort and feel less lonely through these morning interactions.
People always say they wish weekends were longer. If you choose to go out in the morning, it'll only be 10 a.m. when you get back home.
Korea was once dubbed as the land of the morning calm. But it's a different story for youngsters. For a growing number of young people, mornings are anything but calm. 정혜림, Arirang News.
Time now to take a look at what else has been happening in the world of sports away from the Paralympics. For that, we turn to our sports editor, Paul Neitz, here in the studio. Welcome back, Paul.
Hello, thank you.
Paul, let's start with the AFC Women's Asian Cup, a great group stage campaign for South Korea. Tell us more.
Yes, right. Unbeaten to finish as the winners of Group A. On International Women's Day, South Korea's international women's team secured top spots in their AFC Asian Cup group against host nation Australia in Sydney in front of a competition record crowd of over 60,000. The two teams played out a thrilling 3-3 draw. The pendulum swung back and forth with Moon Eun-ju opening the scoring 13 minutes in, only for goals from Alana Kennedy and Samantha Kerr to see the Matildas go ahead. Kim Shin-ji tucked away a 53rd minute penalty to level at 2-2. Then Kang Chae-rim made it 3-2 4 minutes later. But Alana Kennedy added her second and Australia's third deep into stoppage time to make it 3-3. Despite the late equaliser, South Korea secured first on goal difference. They are now through to the quarter-finals and will face one of the third-place teams from either Group B or C. Korea reached the final in the last Asian Cup in 2022, but lost 3-2 to China.
Right. Hopefully they can go on better this time around. Now, moving on to baseball, how's Team Korea doing at the World Baseball Classic?
Well, they're not out, but the route to the last 8 is not exactly straightforward, nor is it that easy. They must beat Australia tonight by at least 5 runs, while giving up 2 runs or fewer in 9 innings to advance. This is because it will go down to head-to-head records with the 3 teams all tied on the same number of wins and losses. This comes after South Korea lost their last 2 games, first to Japan, 8-6 on Saturday, then 5-4 to Chinese Taipei on Sunday. Korea were actually saved by Japan, who beat Australia on Sunday. Had Australia won, Korea would be out. Tonight, they are facing Australia at the Tokyo Dome, with the game having started at 7 p.m. It is currently the 4th inning, and the score is 4-0 to South Korea. Korea haven't made it past the pool stage since 2009.
Really, fingers crossed. And finally, in golf, an LPGA win for Lee Mi-hyang over the weekend, right?
That's right. On Sunday, she won the Blue Bay LPGA, finishing at 11 under 277. He finished 1 stroke ahead of Zhang Weiwei and earned $390,000 in prize money. The final round wasn't all that strong, though, having carded a 1 over 73, and 4 players were all tied for first. At 1 point, he became the first South Korean to win on the LPGA Tour this year, and in doing so, she secured her 3rd LPGA win and first since July 2017. 2 other South Koreans, Kim Ah-rim and Choi Hae-jin, tied for 5th at 7 under par.
Great stuff as always, Paul. Thanks for coming in tonight. I'll see you next Monday.
Yes, thank you.
It was a hazy early spring day in the capital area with a high level of ultrafine dust, while Gyeongsangdo and Jeju Island saw dust levels rising in the afternoon. And tomorrow looks like being as dusty as today. Meanwhile, the east coast of Gangwon-do province and parts of the Gyeongsangdo provinces will see rain through tonight, with mountainous regions of Gangwon-do province seeing up to 5 centimeters of snowfall. And it's going to be a colder morning tomorrow. Even the southern regions will see sub-zero temperatures with frost in inland regions. Daegu and Gwangju will begin the day at just -1 degree Celsius. Then by the afternoon, Seoul will be getting up to 9 degrees Celsius. Gyeongju, Daegu, Busan will be all topping out at 12 degrees under sunnier skies. We'll continue to see large temperature swings of around 10 to 15 degrees Celsius throughout this week, so please take care. With that in mind, here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That is all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. From all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.